Greetings, everyone. Today we have with ourselves Ambassador Anil Trigunyat sir. He has served in various important Indian embassies and missions, namely Bangladesh, US, Russia, Libya, and West Asian countries, among the others. He is known for his detailed and sharp analysis and has a very influential name in Indian strategic as well as the business communities. We welcome you, sir, as we decode the Chinese action today. So, sir,
Thank you.
let's start this session. The Chinese propaganda machine has continued to roll out with their efforts to spread disinformation. One of the most recent instances that we saw a few days ago was the PLA hosting Chinese flag in supposedly Galwan. In your experience of so many years, what do you make out of this particular act, specifically considering the factual inaccuracies which were been brought out and the usage of actors to amplify such a propaganda video?
Arpan, firstly, thank you for having me over. About China, I mean, we need to look at it both as a major power in the world, which is trying to displace the numero uno position of the United States by the dint of its economic might and strength. In order to continue that, it does not want the hot wars, even though it is power enough, strong enough power. So it enters into a new strategy for several years and has really mastered it. Even when Sun Tzu says that you want to win a war without fighting it. So this is what precisely they try to mean it. Now they have basically, how do you create a political power? The political power to create, they adopted a three warfare strategy, as it is called, or gray zone warfare, where the actual war does not happen. Yet you are trying to extract the influences, influence the public opinion and all that. So there are three dimensions to it. One is the media or public opinion warfare, as it is called, and which attempts to shape the public opinion, frankly, both domestically and internationally. Domestically, in China's case, wherever it is necessary, but in democracies, domestic opinion is far, far more important, apart from the international domain. Now, if they sound odd, then they will not do it, but they manage the media at home in such a way. And the second type of warfare is like creating the impact and influence over the foreign decision makers. They're like having the control of the media organs abroad, or basically trying to have an invasive influence over the decision makers in that country, be it the congressmen, be it the senators, be it the members of parliament, or the ministers, or the machineries that are locally used. And you can use your economic heft for that. You can use your political goodwill, you can use your soft power, you can use your cultural power for all these kind of things. And third one is the legal warfare, right? The legal warfare essentially means that you are justifying legally whatever your actions are. So you create some kind of a format and a matrix in which you are able to justify. Now, the China does it, all these things rather beautifully. They are low cost items. But they have a far bigger impact. And disinformation is an integral part of it. Or sometimes when you are saying you are projecting soft power in a country, whether it is through vaccine diplomacy or through debts or whatever it is, that is something to create an impression that you are a friend of that country or the people, right? But when you are creating disinformation about something, then you are trying to influence the opinion in that country and create some kind of a mess, political mess. So you get that influence. And this is precisely what China tries to do. In a democratic country where media is broadly free, in a country where civil society is pretty active, where the opposition political parties are looking for issues, and it is irrespective of whether you are a ruling party or the opposition, whichever is wherever is looking for some issues to deal with, because that's what makes their, I would say, existence little more meaningful. And otherwise, if everybody agrees, then there's no need of opposition, frankly. So that's what it is. So that's what they are trying to exploit that. So I look at it from in this sense that they are trying to create, and they have not only in India, but in the Western countries, the Chinese have been masters of it. It's not to say that other countries don't do it. Every country tries to do it. You know,
Right.
you want to have a goodwill, you use these instruments to create goodwill. You use your soft power, like India's soft power is yoga. Everywhere you talk about yoga. IT is your soft power. I mean, you are seen as the knowledge economy. You are seen as a person where, oh, R&D and mathematics and Indians are this and that. So that is your soft power. You are a democracy. That is your soft power. You are having investments in countries. That's where you create the stakeholder opinions in those countries and with the leadership as well. So I think that this is something, but China does it far more in a far stronger institutional way. And if the studies are to be conducted and whatever exists is any indication, I think they have pretty much mastered this art.
So you specifically talked about the investment part as well, and how companies and human resources play a very crucial role in it, right? So despite the Galwan issue that happened, India's trade with China has consistently grown. And even though there is a strong decline in terms of import, import and more focus on Atmanirbhar Bharat, how do you think we can reduce this dependency, sir?
You see that this is something to do with the complementarities of the economies. Right. Now, the whole purpose of Atmanirbhar is that in critical areas, you are no longer dependent for your imports from countries that may become rogue in the process and can eventually create a major hiatus in your growth patterns. Right. Now, it is true that we have had a problem for Galwan, that we have also banned certain apps. We have created certain conditions for the participation in the 5G, or for that matter in infrastructure projects or some others. But the fact remains is that when your economy, whether it is your pharmaceuticals, we are called pharmacy of the world, right?
Right.
Now, as a pharmacy of the world, if 70% of your APIs are coming from China, then you are dependent on them unless you want to do a harakiri of sorts for yourself, right? So what you are trying to do today is you are trying to replace and identify newer suppliers and create your own value in supply chains. So this is what, in my view, the current efforts of the government and the whole purpose of Atmanirbhar Bharat is unlike the previous self-reliance model. Self-reliance is very much an integral part of it, but it is like made in India, made for the world, right?
Right.
Like Atmanirbhar with a global footprint, local for global. Those are the kind of things I think they give away the exact intent of what the Indian government is. So I'm not particularly worried. Of course, it makes a very good talking point. When you want to run down anybody, say you are talking about your problems. But if you come to think of it with China, how do we just to define the relationship with China today? We define the relationship with competition with cooperation, because you cannot wish away China. It is the strongest, largest neighbor that you have, right? It is the second largest economy or the first largest economy in the world. The whole purpose of globalization was integrating the economies. And that's the problem even the Americans face. So they are also continuing to talk to the Chinese. The Europeans face, that's why they are talking. So it is not unique to India. So I would say that we have to work more. And Atmanirbhar has just started in a way. But we don't have any value in supply chains global. Now this pandemic has given us an opportunity to create our own pharmacy and vaccine or healthcare sector, a vaccine and global value supply chain.
Very true, sir. Very true. And that's why we also see the Atmanirbhar Bharat campaign working very well with the defense industry. And so recently we were also talking when India and Taiwan were engaging in cooperation in the field of semiconductors, sir. So do you think that this cooperation that we are seeing can be fruitful, sir?
Yes, Taiwan is actually one of the countries, and that is the reason that China has not invaded Taiwan. You know, I mean, many people are just making out that China will just take it away, take it back and forcibly, and they will not do so, because see, it is like a milking cow for them. It is a country where the Western technology has really achieved a great status. They have emerged as a major leader in semiconductors in the world. And semiconductors, as you know today, and the rare earths, critical minerals, are the two things that are going to be extremely important in this later half of this century. And so therefore, now we have seen that the sale of cars and everything where semiconductors are used, and suddenly everybody had a shortage. So if the Chinese system does not work properly as far as the semiconductors are concerned, then you have a major problem. And therefore, it is good to have an alternate possibility, whether it is from South Korea's Samsung or whether it is Taiwan. So whichever country we can get technologies, whichever country we can collaborate, I think it is worth doing it. And Taiwan people are very, very happy to do so with India. So we don't have the full-fledged diplomatic relations because as of today, we do not recognize Taiwan as an independent country, but we have an office there. Our economic office is there. Their economic office is here. There have been exchanges. And of course, it is an issue that can be capitalized as a part of our gray warfare strategy, as we talked about.
And most recently, we also saw there various MPs who went to the Tibetan Council and they had a conversation regarding it. And after which we saw there was strong condemnation as well, which specifically Chinese ambassador in India, he specifically wrote a certain statement and he sent it to the MPs. So, sir, how do you look at that? So, aren't we also ruffling the feathers?
We should ruffle the feathers. I mean, when war is not an option, what is it? This is the other war is an option, right? You see the difference between war, having actual war and not a war, war-like situation or a competition of sorts, that is what is power and influence. You see, that's the basic difference in this whole thing. So we have to do that. Now, this is like for us, when they talk about Arunachal Pradesh, change the name, so they say don't issue visas to some people. They try to needle you, on your sensitive issues. That is your territorial integrity, sovereignty issues, right? Which every country is rightly very, very sensitive and very touchy. So I feel that this was, maybe it happened just like that without any specific, objective in mind. Members of parliament go everywhere, wherever people invite them. But I'm happy that this created this kind of a problem. You see, presence of Dalai Lama since 1953 has been a major cause of discussion between India and China, right? Taiwan issue of Taiwan, issue of Tibet. These are very important issues. They can be flagged. If they continue to do something on our borders and flag issues pertaining to India's sovereignty, we have every right to do so. What suits us best. And that's why I'm very happy about it, actually, in a way.
Okay, sir. So most recently, you said about Arunachal Pradesh, and Arunachal Pradesh has also been in the news as we see regular different villages after villages being constructed near the border areas. And moreover, there has been a recent increase in the border altercation in the specific areas of Tawang and Anjao district. So, sir, what do you think will be the strategic implications of this particular village building, and also considering the recent land laws that China passed?
Yes, you just mentioned about the recent 3 laws that China passed about the border management. And so every country is entitled to beef up its border. You see, until recently, there used to be some patrols, and they were not always fully borders were fully, because of the weather, were not occupied, the way they are. But the China has seen, this Galwan incident has actually shown China, when we captured even those strategic heights, that India is now not going to give up just like that. Right. Besides, we are also creating equally big infrastructure, if not more stronger infrastructure in India, which we had avoided earlier. So it is, you have to control and protect your own boundaries, and that's what precisely India is doing. If they are trying to do it in our side, then of course it makes a major cause of concern, and that's what is being discussed in these 14 odd dialogues that have happened at the border level, commanders and the other mechanisms between India and China. So I think that this is something which gives you I think that this is something which gives you an idea that it is not going to go away easily, that we are not looking at a very great bonhomie or as you call, like with the Chinese.
Very
In
true.
my view, personally, I feel that China is going to be your uh, global competition,
Right.
and it'll be for a long time to come.
Right, sir. So, right, you mentioned right now regarding the 14 rounds of military talks, sir. So, even
Yeah.
after that, and considering after 20 months of standoff that we are seeing at this point of time on two borders that we have, so don't you think that sometimes, not just sometimes, I specifically believe that the Chinese counterpart don't want to solve the problem. They just want to stall
Well,
it,
yeah, I mean, this is their strategy. Of course, this is also a strategy, no?
right?
Not to talk is also a strategy. And go to war is a strategy, which is the last one.
Resort.
After war, in a few days' time, you will again be talking. You have to do the diplomatic thing. You can't just do anything about it. So that is basically the cycle has to continue. What India has preferred is dialogue and diplomacy, right? And the Chinese have gone along with that, but they go very slow. They judge everywhere because see, they are not looking at it only in terms of India-China border.
Right.
From China's perspective, they're looking at the broader global context. That is India's proximity to the
Right.
Americas, the Quad, the AUKUS, all those kind of things. What happens in the maritime borders. So that's why they want to go slow here so that they see the developments on the other side and can calibrate. So it is their strategy. So, but they also know that this cannot go on indefinitely. So if not now, the 15th round, maybe you will see a greater progress. After all, from the lake, we had seen that there have been movement backwards, earlier. So they have moved back, both sides. Now they are making a bridge, but this is on the side which they say is theirs, but we consider it as a part of the Indian territory because the China is sitting at thousands of kilometers of the Indian territory. That is something that is going to be discussed. The problem is that China considers that LAC is not the line of actual control, but line as per China.
Exactly. So, sir, how do you look at the relationship that these two countries are having at this point of time, and what do you see the future?
I think that, as the External Affairs Minister very clearly said, that it is a complex relationship. It is at its low at the moment. But India is also, as a major power in the region, does not want to conflagrate it. So we will continue to collaborate where we can, and we'll continue to compete where we must.
Right.
And I think that this will be the pattern that we'll follow, short of war. But China will continue to undermine India's interests because China, essentially, in my view, wants to make India confined to South Asia, not go out of this, not become a global power that can challenge it. Because they are already, in terms of whether it's technology, whether it is economy, whether it is this. But this is also something that if in India of nearly equal population size and far more superior in services sector and others, is able to compete with China and has a good economic growth, it can be a major challenge to China's. So eventually, nobody stays at the top for too long.
Very true.
Whether it is, the cycle continues.
Yes.
We were at one time had 27% of the global GDP,
Yes.
Today you are less than 2%. So it happens. So cycle will continue. So India will be also there one day. And this is what fears China. So China wants to delay it, like the Americans want to delay the China's rise and replacement. So it is a part of the cycle that will continue to go. But I only hope that we are not faced with a war, because once you have a war, whether it's China, whether it's India, they both will go back by 20 years at least.
Right. So, sir, considering the South Asian neighbor that we are in, right, and we have been recently reading up on the deepening crisis of Sri Lanka and going bankrupt. So, sir, there are certain consistent things that we are seeing in South Asian countries who have taken debt from China, giving the example of Pakistan, Tajikistan, Maldives, and many other countries. So, sir, don't you think that this unifying factor of China is going to become a lesson for all the other nations and the globe to reduce the dependency on China?
Well, it depends on what alternative they have, the other alternatives. You see, every country and the leadership, especially smaller countries, they are looking for investments, they are looking for some kind of a protection, they are looking to leverage their strategic locations with China, and which is what China has been exploiting because it has deep pockets. It has a quick decision-making mechanisms. It has good delivery mechanisms. So let's give the devil its due. At the same time, those countries don't have the capacity or capability to negotiate or bring China down or stare it in the face, because then there's nobody else, right? If China has cultivated its BRI and has countries from Asia to West Asia to Africa to Europe, everybody endorsing it, there is something to it, right?
Right.
That's what they're trying to do. If they have created the Maritime Silk Road, this is another big project. So China is thinking in a 100-year format. China thinks in terms of big projects, and its delivery mechanisms, I must say, are good. Of course, it's on today. If you were to see that after the pandemic and otherwise, it is facing problems economically also. It's not that this is some of these are unsustainable, but this is inbuilt. What in Sri Lanka, Hambantota project, or in Maldives, $3 billion debt that they gave them. Now, when you are taking the debt, the political leadership is very happy to take it. But the time comes to pay back.
Exactly.
When the time comes to pay back, your economy does not sustain that. So
Right.
what do you do? In that process, you are left with no option but to hand over the project to them till such time that they will take out. And in that sense, your sovereignty is compromised.
Very
And
true.
that is why these countries in the neighborhood have to understand independently that working with India is more beneficial to them or working with China is more beneficial. But today, as I look at it,
Right.
I think that these countries in South Asia and Africa and anywhere else actually are trying to probably, or especially in South Asia, I would say, are trying to, with the sole exception of Pakistan. Pakistan is a different basket case. That's a different thing. But here, the rest of the other countries trying to leverage their relationship between India and China competition so that they can benefit themselves from both sides.
And we see the case of Bangladesh, sir. They have been walking the tightrope since a long time. So, sir,
Yeah.
what is that something what we can learn from Bangladesh, sir?
No, we don't have to learn. We have to be magnanimous. We need to do what we are doing. We need to do more, because see, it is a competition of the capital. You don't have enough capital. What you have is a goodwill, and what you have is a non-reciprocal relationship. India does not have this thing that they will take over anybody's project if they don't pay back. Very often we just let go, right? That is something. So at the grassroots level, we need to do what we need to do so that people are understanding themselves. You see, there is, of course, the Chinese foreign minister was in Sri Lanka, I think in Maldives yesterday and today in Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
Now they are writing about it. Their MPs have begun to write. There have been public demonstrations against these kind of things. So the kind of methodology or the wool warrior diplomacy or arrogance that China shows is going to backfire on them eventually. Really, at the end of the day, the smallest country in today's time and age has a voice somewhere. It may not have a strong voice, but it does have a voice. And what most of the African countries who are also in the similar situation feel that, okay, their leadership says, look, I mean, they are talking about project. The project is very much here. You can see the railways, you can see the buildings, you can see the hospitals, you can see the stadiums. So they're not taking away these. They are here for the public to use. So that's how they justify this continued investment of China. And China is also, I must say, gradually learning, and trying to calibrate its approach. We need to be a little more faster in honing up our own approaches in this.
Thank you so much, sir, for this wonderful session.